Hmm? Ah! Oh.
Well, hey there, you. Yes, I mean you. Have you just finished watching an episode of your favorite television program, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel? Are you looking for a podcast to enhance your viewing experience? Well, look no further. Welcome to Perfectly Marvelous. Join our hosts Erica, Kara, and Jade as they provide you with hours of witty banter, behind-the-scenes fun facts, and oh, so much more. Now sit back, relax, and get ready for a perfectly marvelous time. Good evening, folks. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Jade.
I'm Kara.
And I'm Erica.
And this is Perfectly Marvelous, a podcast dedicated to the incredible Amazon Prime show, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Today we are covering Season 5, Episode 6, The Testi-Roastial.
Written by Amy Sherman Palladino and directed by Daniel Palladino.
Oh my gosh, so much to talk about, guys. So many tissues.
Oh yeah.
Just on the floor, covering the floor of my apartment.
Yeah, my dogs were very concerned about me.
Yeah, right? I was very concerned about me. I know I sent you guys a selfie of my ugly cry face after I watched this episode because I'm just a vain actor like that and it just needed to happen. Jason and I did that after we watched the season finale of Dead to Me.
Oh,
and listeners,
gosh.
If you know, you know.
Yeah.
that was an ugly cry.
Yeah, that's appropriate for sure.
Yeah.
A very well earned ugly cry. That finale was, I'm going to start crying now.
I know, right? God. But this was less of an ugly cry and more of like a tears of joy cry, actually. I mean, my face was still hideous, but it was joyful tears, you know.
True.
It was a hopeful cry. But before we get into it, before we get there, I just want to say at the top, guys, we here at Perfectly Marvelous are part of the Podcastica network, and it is a marvelous place to be. If you haven't checked it out, I just gotta say, we got some amazing things happening right now in Podcastica world, so you can find all of our stuff at podcastica.com. I'm most excited to check out the Tombstone review, the classic 1993 Western film with Val Kilmer and Kurt Russell. That is a podcast called It's Showtime, folks. We have many podcasts to check out, but It's Showtime, folks, is a review podcast of movies, classics to just new releases. And Mark, Rima, and Kristen they're talking Tombstone. So that is out for you guys to check out, along with a ton of other great film reviews on It's Showtime, folks. Any other stuff that you guys are loving right now on Podcastica?
Yeah, I've got... Sorry, Erica.
Go ahead, Kara. No, go ahead.
I had a lot of free time last week since I was sick, and I binge watched the MGM Plus show From, and Alex and Lizzie are covering that on the What Is From cast, and I am absolutely obsessed, not only with the show, but their coverage is fantastic, and they've been interviewing a bunch of the actors on that show, so if you are at all interested, you should definitely check them out. The other one that I was kind of binging was Run for Your Lives, because they've been covering...
Yeah, it's so good.
It's so good. They've been covering Tremors lately, and that's like one of my favorite kind of guilty... it's not really a guilty pleasure. I just love those movies.
That's a pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a pleasure. So those have been my two favorites.
Yeah, Daphne and Paige are awesome.
Yeah.
And I feel like people who like Mrs. Maisel might be also watching You, or might have watched You. I know that Rima and Paige on Strange Indeed, one of my favorite podcasts ever, they did a great coverage of You. So if you are into that show, then check out Strange Indeed as well. There's just a ton of great stuff. So yeah, podcastica.com has it all. Check it out. Do yourself a favor. Hours of enjoyment. Now, next bit of housekeeping. Listeners, I just have a request. You guys have been so awesome about leaving feedback for us, and you've been so awesome about answering any, questions that we have. Like, we wanted to know how you felt about Only Murders in the Building, which is coming up. The next season is coming up in August, and a lot of people have said that they would love to hear us cover that show. So that's probably going to be coming your way in August with the three of us. And a lot of people also, well, not like a whole ton, but a couple of people have voted. Please continue Perfectly Marvelous. Please do a rewatch of Mrs. Maisel from the beginning. And yeah, if that's something that you guys would be wanting, if that's something you guys would be interested in, please let us know and we will think about it. We've got some ideas going. We don't have like all of the hours of time in the world, but there is a little bit of time before Only Murders in the Building starts. So we might be wanting to go back and start from the very beginning of Mrs. Maisel. I feel like at the end of this, I'm going to need to, just because I don't want to let it go. Because
Well, think about how many like Easter eggs and stuff we'll be able to find going back and rewatching. It's kind of irresistible, the idea of doing a rewatch on that.
It's kind of irresistible. Yeah, I could rewatch this show endlessly. So yeah, if that's something that you guys want, please let us know. And if there's another show out there that you would like us to look into, totally open to, suggestions. So let us know. Also, another exciting announcement. Perfectly Marvelous is on Instagram. Woohoo!
Yay.
Woohoo! You can find that. We will link it all in the show notes. So lots of stuff for you guys to check out. All right, housekeeping done. And now, without further ado, let's start the show. Tits up, bitches.
Tits up.
Tits up.
In my perfectly beautiful room, and we're living together and having a marvelous time.
Oh, Sally, I'm afraid it wouldn't work.
All right. So, as always, we are going to start off the discussion today with our most marvelous moment of the episode.
Dawes,
Yes, ma'am.
isn't that marvelous?
Erica, take it away.
Oh man, there were so many marvelous moments and so many like sad and poignant moments, but I had to pick my favorite was Susie just smiling as she was leaving the Friars Club and Elton John's love song starts playing and we just faded to the credits. I was tears. I was like, oh my God. It just, it left me wanting more, but it was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
It really was.
Perfect song.
Perfect song.
Yep.
Perfect ending.
And with her cream puffs, of course.
Absolutely.
to go.
Those cream puffs. Yes. We learned a lot about Susie that episode. But we always
Learned a lot about Susie this season. This is a very Susie-centric season, and I am here for it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Kara.
Oh gosh. So I didn't have a final decision on what my most marvelous moment was until like
Cheater.
20 minutes ago.
I thought you were going to say, so you have more than one. I'm
Well,
like, no, you have to pick one.
No, I ultimately ended up picking one, and I think obviously the end was great seeing Midge, but one of the things that brought me just like so much joy and a huge smile to my face is when we see that she and Mike become like good friends and they're talking about needing to go to lunch and, flipping each other off, and it's like their little secret handshake almost now. Like, I was giddy seeing them interact, and all of the scenes, were in the flashback in the 60s, kind of investigating George was great too. But that whole reveal and their connection made me really happy.
I know. I love
Agreed.
seeing more Mike and his relationship to Susie when they did like the middle finger fist bump. It was really, really cute.
It was precious.
Yeah, that was good. Okay, my most marvelous moment. Emily Bergel as Tess. You guys, I just don't,
I thought you might pick that one.
because it was the moment that it's always the moment that I audibly say to myself, like, yes.
Yep.
And it's always Tess when she came out in that like
Gold, literally.
Gold lame.
Yeah.
Cringe.
And that wig, man, that wig, you could totally see like her brown hair, like at the temples, it was so bad, but so good. Oh my God. So I can't pick the whole section. We're going to go into that part where Tess comes out and we're going to talk about it.
Oh my
but
gosh.
There's a moment, okay? The moment that my heart just dropped was when she turns her head away and then goes, hit it. And like snaps her head back really quickly. And like before she starts to sing, she like does this Vogue thing where she like starts framing her face a la like Madonna, like very 80s. And oh my God, it was so good. No, I'm never, ever gonna stop.
Oh, they stopped it.
My God. Oh yeah.
Right before like the sex moaning. Come on, guys.
Right before, I know, you cut it before the best part, the sex moaning. When she like leaned into those guys and she's like, loving you, kissing you, watching you. It was like a stalker song. Oh my God, it was so good.
So good.
Oh yeah, it was great. I adore Tess. I love Emily Burgle, and I'm so happy that they're just giving us more Tess. Like they heard me. They heard my cry.
They're listening,
for
obviously.
Tess. Yeah, they're listening. Yep. It's just because the show gets me. You guys get me, listeners. You get me. I'm loving this. Let's keep it going. Okay. We have this flash forward of Midge. She's on stage. She's doing her stand-up. It's 1985. Apparently, she was dating Paul Simon. Mm-hmm. It's like I catch so many different things on my rewatches. I just, at this point, have come to, as soon as it's over, I just drag that little bar right back to the beginning and just like let it play again as I'm like doing other things around my apartment, because I'm just trying to let these words like wash over me and pick up any little bits. And apparently one of the audience members is like, Paul, they yell, like she says, I broke up with somebody, and someone goes, Paul Simon, and she's like, no, that was 2 tiny singer-songwriters ago. So many little bits. But I also got to say, Rachel Brosnahan is doing such incredible work, just seamlessly transitioning into her older self.
Absolutely.
Older version of Midge. She's not overdoing it, but the way something about her stance or her gestures somehow suggests age. And don't ask me how to explain this. I don't know. The way she holds herself on stage, there's like more weight to her hand gestures.
It's like
and
the
movements.
Gravity. There's something very just...
It's like deliberate.
Yes.
Yeah. The way that she just has this ease on stage. And it's not like she's not easy on stage when she's younger, but her energy is maybe a little more like frenetic and...
Oh, yeah.
And
less frantic. Yeah.
Yeah,
she is very frantic, I think, as a young, performer. And I think she also, like, yes, she still talks fast, but she has slowed down her delivery just enough to where it's a subtle difference, but it's not glaring. And this should be their Emmy episode. I'm just going to say it right now. Like,
I will second that. Yeah,
I agree.
This is tremendous. I honestly didn't expect it to be this good, which is crazy because it's so good. I know it's going to be good, but this was like, it surpassed all of my, I think, that's the general consensus. People are like, wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
This was a wow moment. But yeah, I hate to keep comparing Midge to Joan Rivers because it's not a direct, she's not trying to mimic Joan Rivers or anything, and the writers weren't trying to write Joan Rivers. But when you watch Joan Rivers as a very young woman, there's something about her energy that's, like a little more like frantic and hyper. And then older, she's just giving me, I don't know how Rachel Brosnahan is doing this, but she's incredible. Her work is very appreciated.
It's wonderful.
So then she starts talking, she's joking about breaking up with Susie, and it's kind of mean. And I'm not really sure what message, she wants to send to the audience. She works out her problems on stage, we know this, but clearly she's pissed. This is 85. It has just happened. She says, I just broke up with someone. And then we get to modern day and we get this Mrs. Maisel like seal all of a sudden, and it signifies her brand, perhaps. Like maybe this is what the stamp that goes on her wigs and whatever other beauty products that Maisel, sells. And I thought that was really cool. I thought it was a really nice like touch there. And as soon as we get into the next scene in 1990, the Elton John song Susie Drama starts playing, and I was like, oh, it's a roast for Susie. I got so excited. I was like, of course. I thought it was going to be a roast for Gordon Ford. That was my prediction, but
nice.
I really love this song. I never really like thought of it and how it kind of pertains to Susie, but the lyrics, well, she sure knows how to use me, pretty little black-eyed Susie, playing hooky with my heart all the time, living with her funky family in a derelict old alley down by the river where we share a little loving in the moonshine. And I'm like, damn, it's such a good song for Susie. Pretty little black-eyed Susie. Yeah, I love that song. So we get this chick, Heather, played by Alana Fox, and she's like Susie's Girl Friday, her little gopher girl. And she's like meticulously looking at the dust and like specks on the floor. And she's like, she won't be happy about this. And I just didn't understand this bit. I think that it's,
I thought it was going to be Midge or something.
Me too.
I was just wondering where this was going to go. And then it just didn't go anywhere. And I've heard some people comment on that moment where everyone fell asleep because of the rum cake. And I was like, oh, this means that Janu is going to be a thief and he's going to drug them all. And he's like, no, I think this is just a bit that like does, and this happens sometimes with the Palladino writing. It's just like a bit that doesn't play for me. Like it doesn't hit as funny. I think maybe some people would have found it funny, but I view these little bits more like they're making something a thing. And then it leads me as a really active viewer to think, where is this going? This is going to pay off. And then it never pays off. So just something to comment on. Not a big deal, but just saying it kind of didn't go anywhere.
It threw me off too, a little bit.
Yeah. And it just doesn't make much sense because it's like setting us up to think that Susie's going to be super meticulous. She's gotten super meticulous in her older age and she hasn't.
No.
She's a stoner who doesn't give a shit about anything. So why would this woman be so concerned? I don't know. It just didn't really make sense. So the roast is at the Friars Club. And if y'all remember, this is where Susie like stalked Harry Drake in season 1, I think. And they wanted to like kick her out way back in the day and she couldn't get a table and they like reluctantly let her in. And now they're like hosting a roast in her honor. And I just love it. I love that
fantastic.
And we see like go.
I was just say, it's funny because I think any other actor almost playing this character, any other character doing the things that Susie did, I would hate them. But I am still wholeheartedly like cheering her on and happy for her success. So,
dude, you could say that about Midge. You could say that about Abe and Rose. Like, how do I love these characters so much? And they're all pieces of shit.
Well,
like on the
Palladinos are really good at creating like lovable assholes, or selfish, nearsighted characters that are just so damn charming you can't help but root for them.
They just weasel their way into your heart and they burrow in there and they won't leave.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We've all seen the Gilmore Girls, and listeners, yes, get used to it. We're going to be saying Gilmore Girls a lot this episode because how can you not? This is pretty much a Gilmore Girls parade of actors, and I'm not mad at it. No. I was wondering when we were going to see Sean Gunn.
I know.
Since season 1 of this show, I've been thinking, man, Sean Gunn would be perfect on this show. Why isn't he making an appearance? And then finally we get him, and I'm so happy. Okay, anyway, before we get there. So then we introduce a lot of like new characters. And I've heard a lot of criticism about this final season for introducing so many new characters last minute. I don't have problems with it. I'm like, I think a lot of viewers need to just, get their panties out of their butt crack and just calm the fuck down. Because people are like, why so many new characters? I can't handle this. Who are these people? It's like, just accept it. It's a new person. You're not supposed to, it's not a big deal,
We're progressing through the future. There's going to be new people.
I will say, though, when I saw all of these new people, I was just like, oh no, are we not going to get like much of our main characters? Like, what are they doing with this? Like, I had a moment where I was like, oh shoot. Luckily, it was fine. So
yeah, it was totally fine. I liked this as a framing device too. I thought that introducing all the key players like mafia style, there's a big mafia vibe about this whole season, and it kind of felt like an Ocean's 11 like introduction. So we got like Stuart Jones, the roast master, Aaron Leibowitz, the hostile witness, Benny wasn't invited, and this was another bit that like didn't really go anywhere because I was expecting to get a little something about Benny. Who is Benny? It would have been funnier if we figured out like who this awful guy is. I think the funniness is just supposed to be his face and how like, oh, what's his name? I forget his name. Vayner. His last name is Vayner. 1 second. Thought I had it written down. John Vayner played Benny, and something about John Vayner's face is just like he has this douchebaggy grin. I don't know. I feel terrible right now saying this, but like in the best way, you know? Not that he's a douchebag. I'm sure he's a lovely person in real life.
A douchebaggy grin is an asset as an actor, so I feel like that's a compliment.
He was able to convey so much with just his big toothy smile, you know, like his obnoxiousness. But anyway, I just lost my place in my notes. Sorry, guys. Okay, yeah. So then Mike Carr is the dean and Ray Ortiz the hammer. So it's like, you know, all these guys who are there to kind of prop up Susie, which I really did love. And then Susie gets out of the limo in a cloud of smoke because she's now a pothead, and she's like the head of the families. You know, it was cool. She was giving rock star Patti Smith vibes with her look, her long jacket, her long black jacket, and her crazy hair, which I really like to think will be my hair when I go gray. I'm just gonna let that happen. It was fabulous. I loved it. So let me get into the top of the roast. Stuart Jones starts it off talking about this golf course moment in taking us back to 1971.
Oh yeah, I just loved everything about it. As soon as I saw Sean Gunn pop up on the screen, I was so happy. And obviously the fact that it's kind of full circle for Susie back in the Friars Club, it just kind of flows perfectly after what we saw set up for us in, you know, the end of the last episode with all the voiceovers, essentially foreshadowing how she's becoming this, you know, legendary, enigmatic, almost mythical figure in the entertainment industry. And it was just so satisfying that she gets to experience a roast at the infamous Friars Club. And for those who are maybe our younger listeners or people who aren't as familiar with the Friars Club, it's a huge deal. Like, that is absolutely a huge deal. Other infamous roasts that I thought of that were kind of, you know, appropriate for this time period and back in the 60s, like Chevy Chase popped into my head, Johnny Carson, Lucille Ball. Like,
oh wait, guys. Oh God, shit. Okay, sorry.
Well,
I got so scared just now. I thought that my audio had stopped. Never mind.
Geez.
Continue.
That's scary. I was like, what happened?
I just checked mine just to make sure mine was okay too.
My heart just dropped. Sorry. Good. No, it's
okay.
Good. It's good. Go ahead.
I'll start over. Other, you know, really prominent figures who had roasts that popped into my head that I thought was relevant for the time period were, you know, like people like Chevy Chase and Johnny Carson and Lucille Ball and Bob Newhart, and Betty White was one of the more recent ones. So the fact that this is happening for Susie is such a big deal, and I couldn't stop grinning like an idiot once I realized what was happening. And having Sean Gunn stand up as the roast master, Stuart Jones, also made me grin like an idiot because he's so talented. And look,
my Kirk
was brilliantly quirky and just like such an enjoyable annoyance in Gilmore Girls.
What an invention.
Yep.
Truly, only Sean Gunn in my mind has ever made a character that I loved so much and who was just so annoying. Like, he made a thing out of being adorably annoying. I loved him so. He was one of my favorite parts of the Gilmore Girls.
He pulled it off. Like, I have a Babette ate oatmeal bumper sticker on the back of my car. That is how much I love Kirk. But I will say, like, I know, Jade, you already talked about how, sorry, get used to the Gilmore Girls references, but it's impossible, guys. Like, the Paladinos...
At least on this episode.
Yes.
Episode is going to be intense.
There are just so many. And the Paladino universe, like, they have very strong relationships with the actors and their projects, and they just pop up repeatedly in these shows. And... I think it was just a joy to see him on my screen again. And he did a great job. I 100% was ready to listen to what he had to say about Susie. And going into this legendary day on the golf course, when she got the triple crown, the legendary triple crown, I was just like, what the hell did she do? And I will say, I love that we saw her playing with Harry's clubs that he left to her. That got me a little emotional on my second watch once I realized what was happening. And, it's not bad advice to play golf as a young law student. Just briefly, I'll say I heard that repeatedly from older women that were already attorneys. They're like, learn to play golf. Learn to love it, because that's where things are going to happen. And Susie absolutely made things happen on that golf course. She made 3 huge deals that day, and I was squealing at
within within an hour.
Yeah, like she was on top of it. The first one was huge with the French Connection. We have no idea how she did it, but the fact that she gets the French Connection and then secures a sitcom that she makes up on the fly and refers to her clients, Andy Griffith and Liz Montgomery, who were not actually her clients, but they were so impressed at this sitcom, she pitched them in this deal that they immediately signed with her. And I was like, damn, Susie, like, she's on fire. And then, obviously, I'm sure you both appreciated this one just as much as I did. Her third deal, essentially launching the career of Andrew Lloyd Webber
oh my God.
and Tim Rice by pitching Jesus Christ Superstar. I was just like, this is it. Like, she's done it. But the one thing I wanted to mention that was honestly almost my marvelous moment was her going, and like taking a break, saying she had to go to the bathroom, basically, and all the caddies huddling around her, and how she has every caddy at the club on her payroll. That is absolutely brilliant. It reminded me of Lord Varys's little birds on Game of Thrones. Yes. I was just like, Susie's got this. But I think, one, it's incredibly amusing and shows how, her instincts are basically top notch. She knows what the hell she's doing. But we finally see like her street smarts really paying off. Like, this comes from working her ass off and working her way up in the industry and having experience in the service industry. She knows who knows what. Like, Susie is not a Nepo baby.
No, this is what makes a good manager. This is what makes a good person in the biz. I have to tell you, this industry is all about finding the back door. It's very tightly closed for a reason. There's no rule book to play by. It's a game of learning how to break the rules. You don't become famous or you don't become a great manager by just being good, by just following rules and being a good performer and being diligent. No, like, you get to be good by working for other people, getting to know other people, getting to know the weaknesses and the strengths of other people, favors you can do, favors you can call in, connections, you beg, borrow, and steal,
Absolutely.
And Susie, this is her, you have to have that talent almost more than if you're a performer like myself, than the actual performing. You have to be talented at connection making, every big, job, everything that like pays really well that I've done has been through not an audition, but a connection.
That makes sense.
Because I know someone.
She refuses to take no for an answer, but she does it artfully. Yeah. She knows it's like the precision. It's almost like scalpel-like surgical precision, knowing how to operate. Yes, the gay bathhouse. What's his name?
Yeah, right. It's how she
David
she
Weston?
weaseled her way in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's how she got in with Harry Drake. She just wouldn't stop bothering him.
Oh, yeah. Aw.
And but
That was fun.
she's just bothersome enough. Or the woman God, all these names are escaping me now, but she just kept, being really obnoxious and calling her office every 5 seconds. And she's like, have you made a decision? Have you made a decision?
Yeah.
Who else is he running with? Is it him?
Yes.
Is it him? And then she's like, well, it's not really up to me. It's not up to you. Then fuck you. Who do I have to go to? Like, she's just like a bee line,
She's
always
persistent.
eye on the prize. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it pays
love it.
off. But I just, that second rewatch, realizing she had Harry's clubs, made the next part with her and Harry Drake just so much more emotional for me.
Yeah.
I also want to say the musical selection that they have in this scene, Three Dog Night.
Yep.
Mama
Yes.
told me not to come was so good, and then Spirit in the Sky by
I
Norman
love that
Greenbaum.
song.
I
We're
was
really transitioning
loving-
into the 70s now.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I was loving the music.
I think the
Really good.
70s are like my golden era of music. Like, that's what I keep going back to. So
Oh yeah,
I hope they
Same.
keep doing 70s flashbacks.
yeah,
They might
one of
have to.
yeah. One of my favorite lines from this scene was they were talking about how they didn't know how she persuaded Saul, and they're like, she could have had pictures of him rogering a donkey for all we know. She had eyes everywhere. That
Yeah.
just the way that he put it. Also, I looked into this because I got really excited. I'm like, I wonder if Liz Montgomery and Andy Griffith ever actually appeared in anything together. And there was no sitcom called That's Our Time, and Elizabeth Montgomery was never on the Andy Griffith show. They did one TV movie together, though, called A Killing Affair, which now
Aw.
I'm interested to see. Yeah.
Fun. Well, I will say, I'm curious too what you guys thought about how this scene was set up and how a lot of our flashback / kind of flash forwards were set up throughout the show, because it's all these roasters sitting around a table
Right.
and talking about it. Like, did you take them as unreliable narrators or reliable narrators? Or are you
I thought about
assuming,
that.
we're seeing it for the most part as it is?
There was one part, and I don't want to jump ahead too much, where that was questioned, where they actually said that, one was drunk and the other one was drunk, but then they put the two together. Or even when we go into this scene, I really like how they're using this kind of round table of all these male comedians, this representation of just like these like men in Susie's life who have either been barriers towards her success that she's had to kind of hurdle herself over, had not knocked them down, and she's become a legend in her own right, where like they talk about it and everything about them is either a rumor or partially true. And it's just really, really fun how they're using that to kind of tell the story and develop this like caricature of Susie. We know Susie, although do we? Because she seems pretty horrible in some of the sections that we went to. But I was thinking back to when they started discussing the whole breakup. And I think it was Mike had mentioned that he spoke to both Midge and to Susie. They're both drunk. And they questioned them, like, were their stories the same? And he said, yes, some parts were and some were not. But it sounds like that is going to be a reliable narrator instead of the other guys that were like trying to bring in all their other stories about
That's true.
the magical myth of Susie.
I thought they did a pretty good job, too, at saying this is how it really happened. Like the Triple Crown moment, I think, was pretty accurate because Susie, or at least it was accurate to how Susie would like it to be remembered, because she didn't stop and say, hey, that's not true. But then they did, when they were in the hospital with Harry, they did like stop and say, no, that's not how it was.
Right.
And then they're like, well, I heard it this way. And they're like, no, that's not how it was. And I'm pretty sure that the last, the way that got us all in the feels
Was what
I'm pretty
really
sure that was
happened.
the real one. Yeah.
Yep.
I think that I thought about that a couple of times. One other thing I wanted to say as far as the men thing goes, there was a lot of like showing male like I said, mafia style, like all the what did they say? The brothers. Was that the way that they put it when he was referring to the mob? The boys.
The boys, yeah.
The
Susie and her
boys.
boys, yeah. And in the beginning, there was like all the cooks in the kitchen and they were talking about their favorite comedians. And they're like, I love Steve Martin. I love George Carlin. Oh, I like Robin Williams, the Tasmanian Devil. And then they're like, who the hell is Susie? And she's probably like representing all of them. you
Right.
know? there was just a lot of that male domination, but like yet Susie is like at the top of all of them. I really did enjoy that.
And they clearly like respect her and revere her.
Oh yeah.
And it's fun to see. Like all of them sitting around and saying, I heard it happen like this, was such a good echo of that kind of telephone voiceover scene from the last episode. And I just the Paladinos did an excellent job with this whole device.
Nothing says motherfucking respect like a fucking roast.
Oh yeah.
I hope one day I get a roast. Then I'll know I've made it.
Yeah, that's when it's official.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Well, listen. You already have a drinking game, so you're already there. You're already starting. Listen.
That's true. I'm gonna play that drinking game tonight as I drink this wine out of my tits up tumbler.
See?
How much have you had there, Kara?
Literally like 5 sips, I promise.
Lightweight.
It's true. I'm a cheap date. It's fine.
Awesome. Love my favorite kind. So then let's get into this Aaron Leibowitz, who's another manager. He gets up and he talks about Susie and Harry.
Yeah, I know. Well, so as the non-Gilmore Girls watcher, listeners out there are some of us up here who have never watched Gilmore Girls, but I appreciate all the references. And I'm learning as I listen to these ladies talk is that Aaron Leibowitz is played by Danny Strong, who was Doyle on the Gilmore Girls. So you guys can gush about that because I don't know who that was, but I loved him. I thought he was great. And he also played... Yeah, he was also Jonathan on Buffy. Please. So I know there's a lot of people who are going, oh my God, Danny Strong's here. And I looked, he's also an Emmy Award winner, a Golden Globe winner. He's now a very talented screenwriter and director. So he's got some chops behind that. So he's up there. He is a manager and a competitor of Susie's. And I love the line that he said, nobody in this business is like Susie, but then, of course, went into that, No, I mean, no one in this business likes Susie.
That was good.
So we're seeing this kind of relationship of like how she has made some friends, some frenemies, and some enemies as she's made her way up to the top. And there is this one reference to Pol Pot. I had to look it up. I don't like when they said it. And even on my rewatch, I'm like, what is this Pol Pot? Apparently, Pol Pot was a Cambodian dictator in the 70s. And, and when Tess makes that joke reference again, that's how I heard it. I'm like, Pol Pot, what's that? So
that was good.
It was really, really good. So we learn how Aaron was part of Harry Drake's business, that he was one of his associates. And, and then when he brings up Harry's name, the audience like just grumbles and really groans out there. So you can see like what kind of legacy Harry has left. And he said that, Harry was born upside down because he had all those knives in his back. And it made me pretty sad. But
yeah,
it's kind of like, even though Harry, blacklisted Susie and Midge back in the day, I think we all learned to like Harry, that he was just loyal to his client. They messed with Sophie, so he was like, nope, we're not going to do that. And
yeah,
he was just being a good manager.
Yeah, Susie would have done the same exact thing.
Yeah.
But then he becomes like, I said, there's that scene in season 4 where they're sitting on the bench and in the park, and he's like, all of a sudden Susie's like fairy godmother. And although you could say, at first I was thinking like, this is quite a leap. Like, why does he care so much? There's something that came full circle for me in this episode where now I'm like, that it seems perfectly right. And that was a really great setup to give us this. Yeah. The Paladinos really have the long vision writing going on.
What is that called? Don't make fun of me for this, but I just thought it was like game recognized game. Like,
yeah,
he totally sees himself in Susie, like he respects her.
Yeah. And it was so sad that it's so true, though, that in this business, you usually don't really make friends. And they said the people that did stick around were basically stealing from Harry toward the end. They were like taking the paintings off the walls. And
it's awful.
The two of them only have each other and they know it, and he says, I can only trust What they have is very rare, and they cherish each other.
Yeah, and I think that, even when they brought up the fact that we were just going back into this, they were talking about how loyal she was to Harry. And then they brought up they brought in Darren Criss. And I was watching that scene and it came up with Toots Shore. And I'm like, is Darren Criss playing Toots Shore? No, the Toots Shore is the actual restaurant. I don't know if any of you guys looked into it. It's just a famous restaurant in New York. But this guy is just a piece of shit. He's talking about Harry and how he wants Susie to represent him. And Susie lets him have it. She just says, fuck you. You're
this is great.
Harry doesn't deserve to give you anything. She got you movies when you're, this washed up, delisted actor, and, left him there. It was great.
Yeah.
When she said, the only terrace you're gonna know is the one you jump off of, asshole, I was like, whoa,
damn,
that was intense.
Damn,
Jesus.
And Darren Criss, he plays a really good asshole. I loved him on Glee. I loved him in he does a lot of what is his name? Oh my goodness, my brain. Ryan Murphy shows. So it was kind of nice to see him in a different universe. But yeah, he was a little prick. And she let him have it, and she made him pay for his own drinks as she slammed the door in his face. But, it gave us a little bit of levity, but also it really showed how upset she gets when people were talking about, what people were doing to Harry at that point when he was just losing his clients, and she wasn't going to have it and wasn't going to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And then the transition to him in the hospital, which was just so sad.
That was rough.
It was really hard to hear. And I know they went into just the rumors in the beginning, and it was kind of funny. Beginning, they're how ruthless Susie is that she he's on his deathbed and she had these plagiarized documents and forcing him to sign. And then the next guy's like, no, the daughter was in it. And then the realization of the one guy whose sister was one of the nurses was able to, no, they validated and said, nope, this is what really happened. It showed no, Susie has a heart, and Susie is loyal and cares about those that she loves. And, the very end when she was holding his hand, and when she said Ruth and he's like, I'm here, Dad. And I think
I was losing.
I know.
Yeah.
And I could hear Susie even know he was a father figure to her, and that, and even if not, even if that's just me projecting to it.
I think you're
she gave that last moment for him. She gave him that comfort, thinking that his daughter was there one way or another. And even if it was in, Susie's presence, it was just the best thing she could possibly do for him. And their little banter back and forth was so cute. Him, you're saying you have an erection down there, or you're disgusting, or whatever she said.
Yeah.
It was so cute, but it was just a sad, really depressing little moment. But it really kind of showed, that the heart that Susie has, and really how the relationship progressed.
Yeah, and how it did turn into a father-daughter kind of thing. You're making me think, Ruth wasn't there. Where's your daughter? Where's Ruth? And he's like, she's not here. She's not, going to come. So Susie, is kind of his daughter that he never had.
That made me so sad.
Oh God, I know.
Yeah.
Well,
it was very, very sad.
But the clients that he gave Susie, he says Jerry, Mel, Peter, and Lucy. So I'm thinking Jerry Lewis, Mel Brooks, Peter, maybe probably Sellers, and Lucille Ball.
Huge,
I'm thinking,
huge.
And these are the clients that kicked Susie's career to the next level.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting that all of these roasters, all of these men, were so quick to believe that it had to be something either sinister or manipulative, which she's definitely capable of. But I like that she's kind of been able to, I don't know, protect her vulnerability in a certain way. She wants to be seen as this kind of ruthless, legendary agent, and that benefits her. But I don't know. I love getting to see the kind of softer side of Susie. And that moment where she was holding Harry's hand as he passed, I was just like, I gotta keep it together. I was like, this is pretty early in the episode. I can't her yet.
Yeah.
But it was definitely poignant and moving.
Definitely.
So we go to Ray Ortiz, played by Danny Garcia. The Hammer. He's another comedian. And he starts talking about the whole Dinah thing.
That was a lot.
That was a lot.
That was a lot. I wasn't expecting that, but it just shows you again. It's just another representation of how Susie loves and takes care of her own. She'll go to any measure to take care and do what's right for that particular person.
Mm-hmm.
So we find out that, and Dinah is her number 2. I think this almost was my marvelous moment. Not so much what happened to her to become this, but the fact that she is, she is New York. She's in charge.
Yeah,
She's
I love that.
She is not just Susie's, administrative assistant. She is in charge now. She has projected this smart, incredibly wonderful person of color back in the 60s and 70s to become this successful woman just because of how talented she is. And it really made me happy to hear about that. Again, she took care of somebody who was with her when she was in the beginning. And I just love that. And how, again, she's also legendary. Like, she is New York, which made me really happy.
But probably one of my favorite little tidbits that we get is when Susie says, "You're going to become a manager, aren't you? Like, I'm grooming you to build you up." She doesn't just want her to be her secretary forever. She sees big things for Dinah. And then by 1990, Dinah is running the New York, branch or whatever.
And
is
also kind of running, it sounded like the New York mob, like, had a good enough connection to the mob in New York with Frank and Nikki. That's what I took from that too. Like, mostly, yes, she's running Susie's, Meyerson Associates or whatever in New York, but obviously I think there's a connection with Frank and Nikki and the mob still. And obviously, she'd be
they mentioned that. But they did mention, like, everybody was involved in the mob, including Harry Drake. I don't know if you guys heard that. So the mob, just everybody is within it.
So I did some research on this because I'm like, this is clearly the theme of this season. We're not gonna going away from this at any time soon. There is a lot. I mean, we've all seen The Godfather. Like, there is a lot.
I have not seen The Godfather.
Neither. Me neither.
Get out of here.
No,
I haven't seen it in a long time.
I know all the cultural references, though.
Yeah, I totally know all about it. I haven't seen it in a long time, and when I did see it, I have to say I was so young, I did not appreciate it. So I feel like I've kind of never seen it as well, like, because I barely remember it. But yes, through osmosis and through YouTube and through
the cultural lexicon knowledge that we
know what it is, like the horse head in the bed moment, like we all know what this is. So but the Mafia was absolutely fundamental in forming Hollywood itself, the studio system, how they acquired actors, like way back in the very beginning, for example, like Jean Harlow was dating this guy Abner Zwillman, and Mae West was dating this guy Oni Madden, and huge mob figures. The Mafia gave birth to, like, the Sunset Strip in LA, and Bugsy Siegel was this guy who basically formed, like, Las Vegas as we know it today. Jeez. And in the early Vegas days, I mean, virtually every performer with the residency in Vegas is linked to the mob in some way. I guess that's how, like, Debbie Reynolds got her first Vegas big show.
Fascinating.
Debbie Reynolds has quite a few mob connections. That's a rabbit hole. Columbia Studios was completely started by the mob, funded by this guy named Harry Cohn, who was only successful because of his mafia friendships and because he had director Frank Capra, of course. Marilyn Monroe, famous, everyone, there's a ton of stuff out there about this. Her connection to Johnny Rosselli, supposedly, maybe they were lovers and maybe that he killed JFK. There's a conspiracy surrounding JFK's death having to do with the mafia. And Joe DiMaggio, people have said maybe he was part of it. He was actually, like, in the Gambino family. I did not know this. He was connected to the mafia. There was a huge mafia family. The Copacabana in New York was supposedly run by the mafia. I read that back in the day, a guy named George Raft was an actor, and he was the driver for a gangster kingpin, Oni Madden, and Madden's girlfriend at the time was Mae West, and she looked at this guy and said, like, you ought to be in pictures, and then he became a movie star. So the mafia was really big and crucial in getting stars to get into the studio system, and they there was Billy Wilkerson, this guy, he started The Hollywood Reporter. It was like the first news publication about Hollywood entertainment. And John Rosselli, the head of the mafia, basically would get like classified secret documents that and he helped reporters get information for The Hollywood Reporter. All of these things are still going today. So I don't know how much of this is still run by the mafia, and I'm sure that it hasn't really changed. I don't know.
Who knows?
Speculation, but there's
We're just a podcast.
There's so much content
We
out
don't
there.
know.
There are some stuff I want you guys, the listeners, you can check out. There's an amazing podcast called An Offer You Can't Refuse. I didn't realize how fascinated I was by mafia stuff, and this is very fascinating. So there's an episode called The Hollywood Mafia and the Rackets and Los Angeles Gangsters. So I'll link that in the show notes. And also, there's a YouTube video that's pretty brief, but it does give you a lot of information about the Hollywood connection, that your favorite celebrities might be tied to the mafia. So we'll link those things in the show notes. But I just want to say briefly, there's a lot of, this is a thing.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Jade, because it just kind of light bulb went off in my head. So I have not seen The Godfather, which horrifies a lot of people, but I have seen Goodfellas multiple times. And there's a scene, where I think it's Ray Liotta's character brings his girlfriend to the Copa. And that's always stuck out in my head. And now I'm wondering, we know Midge had 18 sold out shows back to back at the Copa. And I wonder if Frank and Nikki are at all responsible for getting her those shows. I hope we see that.
What? But you
100%.
know what? Just to segue back into this scene, when Susie's walking into her office, she's asking Dinah to get her a seat at the Copa, right there.
Good call.
That's true.
She's saying she said she's but make sure I'm in the back, because she doesn't want to be noticed when she walks out in the middle of some set, because she's probably trying to scout talent or anything. But So
That's fun.
again. So it's a really
nice segue.
So we're going back into her office, and that's when we discover that Dinah has been beaten up by her piece of shit boyfriend at the time, Ronald. And Susie is extremely protective. She's like, don't tell me some bullshit that you ran into a doorknob. And the way she treats Dinah and the respect, and then goes into almost kind of joking just to make her feel better, you go home, and I'll send you babkas and all this different food, and make sure the dried fruit. And, and then she's like, and you make sure I'm going to give a 60-page survey to next guys you dated. And just to try to take care of her.
So sweet.
Because me personally, I was scared for her, because her face was so beaten up. This guy could come back after her. Thank God it didn't go that route, because then Susie asks a favor from Frank and Nikki. So her ties are still there. She just asked for another favor. We know that she's connected for them. And they go and they beat the shit out of Ronald. Who knows what happened to him, if he's still with us. And, they go into how the fact that the mob, or at least Frank and Nikki, the boys, own a piece of every one of her clients. And that includes, except for Midge. And that's the kind of when they're but that's a story for another time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I was just thinking about? There's the whole Susie Dinah relationship is such an odd couple, unexpected, unconventional kind of, they're just two totally different kind of personalities, but they just get each other and they're so good together. There's and they said that in this episode, they were talking about the Mike Susie relationship being another odd couple, kind of like her and Susie and Harry. And it's all these actors together just delight me. David Paymer, who plays Harry, seeing him and Susie, they have this chemistry that is just delightful, because it's not what you would expect, just Midge and Susie right there. Odd couple, man. You would just their height difference alone, they're just so funny together, and they're just unexpectedly delightful. And I keep saying delightful. It's fucking delightful. And it's why I just got so giddy when I see Rose and Susie in a scene or something. The Palladinos know how to give us what we want in terms of what's the weirdest pairing. Let's put Imogene and Abe. They're going to be,
that would be
have her
delightful.
be his secretary. Delightful.
Yep.
It's
But
so good. This show should be called The Odd Couples.
No, the Paladinos absolutely have an
deliver.
eye for chemistry. Like,
Yep.
and I don't know. I think every show they do has a certain energy, but this one in particular, the energy from start to finish was like electric and palpable, and
Electric.
it was
Yes.
just, it was almost addictive. Like, I was really upset when this one ended. I was like, no,
Yeah.
I need more. Like, let's do
Yep.
that again.
I had like hunger pains.
Mhm.
I'm not done yet. Yeah. One more thing I got to call out about this scene is the David Mueller, the cinematographer. I love it every time. The way that he uses like the depth of the depth of field in the camera. There's always something going on across the other window in Susie's office. It's like this silent scene happening if you look in the background between these two women. It's just cool.
Oh,
They
yeah.
doesn't have to be there, but or in the way in the last episode when Susie and what's her name?
Maggie.
They share a line. They say something in slightly different ways at the exact same time. It's just so it's feast for the eyes, you know?
Definitely.
Love
So
it.
interesting. So yeah, then we get Mike Carr.
Oh, I love this so
Moment.
much. So much.
Yeah.
I may have
So much my
squealed.
car.
I mean, one, Jason Ralph is just enjoyable on screen. There's something about him that's also so relatable. Like, he just, I don't know. And he's also really attractive, so that helps. But watching him, be introduced as an Oscar-nominated producer 3 times over and an Emmy
Yeah.
award-winning television genius, I was like, oh, good for Mike. This is
I know.
fantastic. And he also may have uttered one of my favorite lines in the whole episode when he's describing Susie as the only woman who ever told Tom Cruise he was
Yes.
unfuckably short is such
Hey, men.
masterful
wondered-
insult.
I wonder what Nicole Kidman would have to say to that. I just want to
yeah,
know.
Yep.
Yeah.
But what?
Excuse
Tom
me, Nicole
Cruise is
Kidman,
like,
could you comment on this, please?
Or Katie Holmes or any of
5'2".
his exes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, also just because she's so tall. I don't know. Anyway,
yeah.
sidebar.
oh yeah. But that I was like, that sounds like something that Susie would say. I buy that. And immediately when he was like, I just have to take a moment and acknowledge the passing of George. And I was just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I rolled my eyes so hard. And I love how they immediately cut to, Danny Strong, his character, I can't remember his name, immediately going, bullshit. Like, Mike was not a fan of George. And it launches us into this wonderful, like, blooming relationship between Susie and Mike back in the 60s. And, Susie wasn't a fan of George either, obviously. We see that too when he greets Midge and Susie and doesn't realize that he and Susie have apparently met half a dozen times at this point. And I thought back to my recent rewatch, and one of the things that Susie kind of lets all of us know and lets Midge know way back in season 1 is that her greatest fear is being insignificant and, essentially not being seen. And I thought that was definitely called back to here with George, but also later, for sure, in the synagogue scene when Midge says, "This is how I'm going to remember you, as small."
Yeah.
I was just
You're
like,
so right, Kara.
Yes.
like that must tear her to shreds inside.
Yeah.
And
Because
when
Susie, doesn't she say, I don't mind being alone. It's just
yes,
one thing I can't handle is being insignificant.
exactly. Like, she is
You're
perfectly
so
fine
right.
on her own. Like, she is good being alone. She's good being a loner, but it's that insignificance and the fact that, she might not be seen or remembered or recognized at all. And it happens repeatedly. Like, obviously the mistake her for a man, that's like a running bit for the first 4 seasons for the most part, especially the first couple. So when George said, oh, I don't believe we've met, I was just like, oh, that cuts deep. And then obviously she uses this to bond with Mike, which one clearly establishes their friendship. Like, I think almost everyone has been there where you've bonded over your dislike of maybe an annoying coworker with like another coworker. Like, it
Your
just
enemy's enemy is your friend.
it happens. And Susie just happens to also use it to her advantage to get George fired and get Midge a step closer to getting on Gordon's show. Because then Mike is able to step into George's position. And there is one thing I wanted to mention while I was looking up news for this episode. There's an article on the Daily Beast titled Reid Scott and Jason Ralph Talk About Falling in Love with Mrs. Maisel. And there's one line that Jason Ralph says, and he's talking about Mike and Susie's dynamic. And he said, I think they're both after the same thing. Mike definitely recognizes in Susie a very genuine person trying to get to the top. I think he sees himself in her, and she sees a little bit of herself in him. They see what each other's doing, so they know how to push each other's buttons in all the right ways, especially her to him. And I love that they're bonding over, you know, their ambition, essentially, and using it to help each other out. Like, both of them getting George fired, that was a mutually beneficial office snooping venture. So I love that that's how they ended up bonding, is getting George fired and benefiting both of their careers eventually. And obviously the callback to them flipping each other off and like bumping fists when they did it was fantastic. But the only thing I thought of on my second rewatch was, okay, so obviously George is gone. We saw them discussing how the rule that nobody who works on the show is able to be on the show was George's rule. So are they setting us up to see Midge being on the Gordon Ford show? And I just, I don't know.
Set right up.
We better see it like actually happen. That's all. I don't want to hear about it or have it mentioned. I want to.
It needs to happen.
So bad.
Yeah. I need this to be a central part of the next episode, please. Yeah. I really enjoyed the little tidbit of George discovering Gordon, and like he was doing traffic and weather at a local news station, and his sidekick was a chicken or something, and George plucked him from obscurity. So
I
George
love that it was like, an animal. Like
we got another bird moment in this episode. That I thought of Kara.
Yep, I squealed.
I was like, that's what you get. Maybe that's why he hates animals so much.
That's true.
He like hates what he had to do at the beginning of his career and has great shame in it. So now he's like, fuck them animals.
Yeah, I liked the pigeon moment when Susie was like,
it's winking.
Dinah, this pigeon just winked at me. Pigeons don't wink, they blink. It fucking winked, I'm telling you. Good God, that amuses me. Why does that amuse me so much? It's because you're easily amused.
Now, what are their names, Kara?
I know.
I know.
What are the names of the pigeons?
For some reason, I would name them. If I were Susie, I would totally name them. Just like Catherine, Susie, and Cooper.
Susie likes to name things. As we all remember, she named her plunger, and I have a little impromptu game for you guys.
Oh God!
Can you remember the name of Susie's plunger? I will give you 4 choices, and you will have it is one of these 4. Okay.
Okay.
It was Susie's plunger named Joanna, Pamela, Gladys, or Tiffany.
Oh shoot,
Pamela. Was it Pamela?
Okay, that's Kara. That's
Gladys.
I thought it was Gladys too. I was so sure it was Gladys. It was Pamela.
Nice. I was like, something about that jumps out at me.
I could not get it off my mind. I went back to that episode.
That's
I rewatched it until I found the scene, and it was delightful just to rewatch that episode.
Pamela.
That's amazing.
Pamela. Oh, I left Pamela in your dad's car. You named it. I've got a lot of free time out here, okay?
Oh my God. That is good.
So yeah, I'm sure Susie has named these pigeons. I'm sure she has.
She's clearly attached to them at this point. Like they've got names. I just wish we knew what they were. Maybe eventually.
So okay.
Yeah.
So anything more about the Mike Carr moment?
No, it was just wonderful.
I just think going how George, how he was when he, just to go back to just watch his demise, is that like how he would just come in and schmooze everybody and kiss everybody's ass. And it was just so gross.
Yep. You see him in a totally different light now. He just comes into the office like Mr. Cheery Pants, fake motherfucker, you know?
And what was Mitch throwing the pencil up into the ceiling so it sticks? Because
did you see all of the pencils up in the ceiling? Like, it's like they were trying to hit a target or something. And then when they all cheered, I was just like, God, I love the writers' room.
They do that. They did that at my old school, and you would go into the classrooms, and there was just, they would have like those ceiling tiles, and there would just be pencils sticking up there. And if the ceilings were really, really high, like seriously, how you're like, how did they get them up there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so before we move on, anything more to say?
There was one more thing that I think needs to be mentioned and recognized with Alex Borstein in this episode. And every time we see her interact with these men and these roasters, it just really stood out to me that I believed 100% that she was older, that this was Susie older. And I think
totally
Alex's,
more so Susie than anyone else.
Yes. It was
you're so right.
Subtle, but you
my
know,
God, Kara, you're so right. And it's so
crazy, right?
It was so there that I didn't even think to make a note about it because I accepted her old. So, oh my God, it's actually scary how much I accepted it and the fact that I didn't even see it as makeup.
Because this is why she deserves another Emmy too, because her movement, I almost saw
You're so right.
the growth in her character just in how Alex Borstein carried herself alone. There was something that just came across as she's self-assured, she's confident, like she knows who she is, she knows what she's good at. And I don't know if it was, her holding her head a little higher and her movements being a bit slower and more intentional, but
it's been a really good progression, too, because it started last episode. Remember when she had that moment in her office where she was walking around like, you stay, you go, she's in charge. And I kept commenting on it. And I'm like, I love the confidence. I love she's just owning herself, you know?
It's awesome to see.
Yeah.
Like on my second watch, I was just like, damn, like I didn't even think twice. Like I just 100% accepted this as Susie as an older person. I wasn't like, oh, Alex Borstein's doing a great job.
Right. Even with Rachel Brosnahan, I always see her and I'm like, and she's wearing makeup right now.
Yes.
It's actually scary to me how that comment you just made me realize I didn't even think to make a note of how good she is in the old age makeup because I forgot she was wearing
which is what you want with old age makeup, and like the skill that takes is just kind of mind-blowing to me.
It's mind-blowing. Yep.
But
yes, indeed. And go ahead.
I'm just stumbling over my own words now because
me too, I know. I was gonna say this is just further emphasized in this part with when she goes to like help Dinah, because the guys are revering her for everyone, including Harry Drake, had the mafia in their pocket and or they were working with the mafia in some way. Like the mafia had a piece of every big manager in town.
Right.
And Susie was the one who, as they said, leaned into it the most. And it kind of became more not public, but like the hot goss when she goes to Frank and Nikki and she goes, now I need a favor. And they're like that tight that it's almost like she's got a special relationship with Frank and Nikki, and she does, right? And we'll get into it now with the whole Joel mob connection. But I also, did you guys clock the Frank and Nikki had like dolls' heads that they were picking them apart to put like huge rolls of money inside the dolls? I really enjoyed that.
So casually. What the hell is happening now?
And they were like, sure, what do you need? Got you. And then when they what was it? It was a Dean Martin song. Oh, Ain't That a Kick in the Head? That plays in the background when they show up to beat up Dinah's boyfriend. That was great. The great music.
That was a good song choice.
So, okay, y'all. Let me take a sip of my tea. and prepare myself to talk about Joel.
Yeah. Can I just preface it with telling you how many times I yelled "I knew it" at my TV screen throughout this whole episode? I was so happy. I was just like, this is excellent. Obviously, it was a popular theory, but still, like, we can all pat ourselves on the back.
Wait, what are you saying? You knew it as far as
Joel going and, like, basically sacrificing himself to protect
pulling
Midge.
A bell from Beauty and the Beast. Take me instead.
And it even tied in with May's family connections, like his Chinatown Club connections, too. That's one of the big reasons why Frank and Nikki seemed to take him seriously, it seemed. And
I'm a very astute viewer. I honestly totally forgot all about that part.
Well, and just money laundering also makes sense, like white collar crime, all of it. But that whole, I'm excited to hear you talk about this part of the show because I was thrilled to see it.
Okay, so was I. First of all, this was I went through. Let me take you on the journey that I went through with Joel because it was a 3-act play of my emotions as they evolved through this whole Joel experience. So Joel goes to Frank and Nikki, makes them an offer they can't refuse, right? You know, he pulls a bell from Beauty and the Beast, take me instead of Midge, and he ends up getting busted and he takes the full rap. He protects Archie and he stashes money, I guess, in Bermuda for when he gets out of jail. This whole thing happens with Joel, right? So at first, I was fully prepared to say, hello, my name is Jade Anderson, and I love Joel Maisel, all right? I love him. Penny Pan who? I fucking love Joel. I was proud to sit here, whatever, before you and say, you know what, guys? The full transformation has occurred within me. But then, and we're going to jump ahead to some listener feedback right now. From one Miss Lisa, and she recently told me that we constantly say her name wrong, but she hasn't told me the correct pronunciation yet. So I am thinking I thought her name was Lisa Silver Talevsky. I think it's Sylver because it's Sylver. It's Sylver. I think
we need the phonetic spelling, Lisa.
Yeah, you gotta help us out because I don't want to be saying your name wrong. And she said when you say
Sylver.
I think it's Sylver.
Sylver. It's fun to say, whatever it is.
She said when we start saying her name right, then she'll call me Jade instead of Jay, because right now she calls her drinking game the Jay drinking game. And I'm like, Lisa, I love her brutal honesty. It's what I need in my life. It truly is. Because I'm just so hearts and flowers on everything all the time. And I'm just so like sugarcoaty. And Lisa's just like, okay, let me just fucking tell it like it is. So this is what Lisa sent as her feedback. And I'm going to read it now because it impacts my Joel viewing. Okay. She says, first off, thank you all for wanting my input. I feel like Sally Fields. They like me. They really like me. And I say that all the time. Maybe not after I make this post, but let's see. This episode threw me off. It told too much. Maybe I needed the mystery. Gordon Ford and Midge stopped seeming important after this episode. Hetty too. My heart sank when they showed the video of Midge at the roast. My emotions were all over the place. Susie crying after their tits up comments to each other were no longer encouraging, but nostalgic and sad. Susie looked beat the fuck up. Hard episode for me. I didn't hate it and I didn't love it. I did hate thinking Susie took advantage of Midge, and that was the true reason for their split. Susie is so dedicated and loyal, but so flawed. When Midge did not want to get married in 73, she said that she still loved that fuck Joel. My eyes rolled. No, I did not want that balcony kiss because it was too predictable, and I puked a little bit in my mouth. And she's referring to the kiss last episode between Joel and Midge. Why do female characters always want their first love? As if they're always and forever, they shall be the one. He gaslights the fuck out of her. That is why I hate him. He's a one-dimensional character. His only focus, Midge. When he was dick deep in his secretary, at least, then he was somewhat interesting. He had a personality. He was good material for Midge. When he saw she was having a life and a little success, he made his focus her. Now he bails her out of the mob, gets arrested, goes to prison to protect her. I want to note that I am sick of a man always being a hero and a savior to women on shows. Why do we eat that shit up? Do you really think the mob wouldn't just keep Midge and take Joel's bar as well? His dad's business? Come on. The mob took the deal a bit too easily. It was an okay, sure, oh golly gee, take a fucking cookie, happy Hanukkah agreement. Chop off a couple of Joel's fingers and maybe, just maybe, I would have found that scene believable. That would have been my most marvelous moment. She's such a savage. Wishful thinking on my part, she says. My most marvelous moment, however, was Susie's sister Tessie singing at the roast. We share this in common. She was over the top camp, and I so want to party with her ass. She never disappoints. Annoying but spectacular. I wanted to go into my opinion on Gordon Ford, but this episode was so heavy. And then she says, "And please do only murders in the building. I'll be listening." So, okay, really, I wanted to read the whole thing just because it goes together, but really I want to talk isolated right now about the part that she mentions with Joel, because y'all, she's not wrong, okay? She's not wrong here. Now, I don't read him as gaslighting Midge. I think that the writers are doing their absolute best to make it clear that Joel is not doing these things because he's condescending to Midge or because he's got an ulterior motive. I don't think that he's doing this in order to get Midge back. I just don't think that that's the reason. But she's not wrong in saying that that is how it comes across a bit. Go ahead, Kara.
There are so many things, but
there are so many things.
I'm going to do it. I have to make another Gilmore Girls callback because I think the Palladinos tend to do this when you talk about a man being the hero. Back in season 6 of Gilmore Girls, like Rory's lost season, when she drops out of Yale and all of a sudden Jess comes back out of nowhere and is, oh, why did you drop out of Yale? This isn't you. And Rory all of a sudden is just like, oh yeah, why did I do that? And that interaction with Jess is what steers her back on the right path. And this is something that irritates me sometimes.
That was very bothersome. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
because I was very similar. Sorry, real quick. I was very similar in my feelings about Jess as Joel. I was like, fucking hate this man. I hated him as a character. They are so good at writing male characters that I absolutely fucking cannot stand. Because Joel, first couple of seasons, absolutely fuck no, get the fuck out of here. Jess, really the entire show. And then when Jess came back and did that with Rory, I was like, too little too late. I see what you're doing. I don't like it.
Yeah,
no, I still didn't like him.
But it's like, it is a good point. Like, he is saving Midge. He is not only saving Midge, he is saving Susie. So that's two women that he is stepping up and saving. And I can see how that would be a bit frustrating. But I also think we are 100% supposed to be rooting for Joel. And I think I am choosing to see it as his personal redemption arc. I think he realizes that he is not going to get Midge back. I don't think any of this is to try to win her back. I think he truly is realizing, one, what he had. He cares about her. And he does have children. No matter how much they neglect them, he seems to care about them. So I think he is doing this.
Okay. But it was like, after reading what Lisa said, I did watch that scene again, like immediately after I read this, because I'm like, oh my God, she has rocked my world. Because like I said, I had bought in, guys, hook, line, and fucking sinker. I was like a sucker. I was in it. I was like, Joel, I love you. I love Joel. But considering who it is that he's saving, it's like, okay, if you don't love what he's doing here, then basically you don't love Midge and Susie. And like, although Midge and Susie are incredibly flawed, as we've already said, I fucking love them. So I love his intention, and I love Michael Zegan. There's so much I love, but I think that it was a bit heavy-handed in the whole, when that little girl shows up and, want a Christmas cookie? I was like, okay, I get it. He loves kids. They're really trying to lay this. And this is not like a last minute, oh yeah, by the way, Joel loves kids. Like, we've seen it, you know, Midge goes on tour and he really did step up as a dad, and we see the kids like hanging all over him and he's not complaining. And I don't believe that he is manipulative, you know? But it was like they're laying on the Joel redemption. It's like I'm almost kind of sick of it, actually. And I feel like Lisa did kind of like reveal this truth to me, and she didn't ruin it for me at all. I love getting like a contrary opinion and having it rock my world.
Yes.
That's exactly what happened here. My world was rocked.
I will say, the one thing I thought it was hilarious, her take on, you know, the mob letting things go that easily and all this stuff. But I forgive that wholeheartedly just because I see this show as almost fantastical. Like, we talked about it being essentially a musical without all the characters singing. Like, it's going to be wrapped up in a nice little bow most of the time. And it's obviously Frank and Nikki are the most charming mobsters ever.
They're friendly gangsters who say hi to the mailman.
Yes. So, like, I can forgive that.
Yeah, no,
it's
that
not
does not
realistic.
bother me. I think that Lisa was too harsh on that front. I'm not bothered at all by the friendly gangster thing. I think that's just adorable.
But I'll say, like, I still I see her points, and it does irritate me that Joel is like this male savior character or whatever for Midge and Susie, but I buy his redemption. Like, I think they rushed it a little bit. I think the Palladinos are under the impression maybe that they did a better job building it up over the seasons. But
when she said one note, though, this season, we're getting one note from Joel.
I hate those mobsters. I need to protect Midge.
Yeah, it is. And you know what's funny is that I almost like continuing to see Joel as a real person and not just the actor who I really do love. I don't blame Joel. I blame God, i.e. the writers, because of the words that they're putting in his mouth. Like, I feel like if Joel could say it or do it himself, he would do it better, because I think that the fault here lies with the Palladinos.
I will say, in our news section later, there is an article and an interview with Michael Zegan about this whole storyline, so he has some interesting perspective for sure.
Erica, you're awfully quiet over there. Sorry, Tara and I are.
It's all good.
We're the big mouths, and we just, when we get on our thing, we like don't shut up. So
no. I'm letting it sink in. I just wanted to say that, you know, one thing, Lisa's very consistent with her opinion towards Joel, and I respect that, and I think it allows us to think about it. And I've had the same type of going back and forth, but I was thinking a lot about the scene where Joel, I guess, breaks into Susie's office and tears it up. It was really, it really kind of painted Susie in like a really shitty light. Like, Susie looked like a major asshole right there. And I don't know if it's because it was coming from the perspective of Joel.
Screaming at Joel, asshole.
Yeah. And it's just like, and I think, I don't think he was doing it to save Susie, because she kept saying, I'll fix it. And he knew she couldn't fix it. Like, she was just too deep, didn't know how to do it. Susie she's got an addiction. She's a gambler.
Right. And it hasn't changed.
And it hasn't changed. And it consistently gets worse and worse. And I know we'll talk about it when we get to the synagogue scene. And, you know, we've seen Susie in a very dark way in certain scenes, and a lot of it has to do with the way she handles money.
Yes, I really want to talk about that too,
and how she lies, or let me not just say lie, but keeps the truth away, whether it's to protect her clients or it's to protect herself. Like, I don't think she intentionally wants to hurt anybody, but just as any addict could possibly be.
Yeah, no, it's true. It is an addiction.
She has an addiction. So I was thinking about that. And I think if we look in a perspective, he wants to protect the mother of his children. Like, that's the reason he did this. And I see it's valiant. And I think that's probably all we can look at. But yeah, I thought a lot about that particular scene because it really was, it bothers me, especially like she's pretty loathsome there, and in the synagogue she's even worse. Like
that was awful to watch.
She looked awful.
There's a bothersome aspect of the fact that Susie just thinks this is fine.
Yeah.
She thinks that this whole mafia thing is fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Nothing to see here, people.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. I got this. Midge, she's going to make so much money. It'll be fine. And it's like, Susie, yes, sure, she will make so much money but it's all up to Midge. It's like she's putting it all on Midge's back, and she's saying, I'll get out of this because Midge is a sure thing. Yeah. She's betting on, which is essentially what a good manager does. They know where to place their bets on what client. But it's a lot of pressure to put unknowingly on Midge to just continue to work like a fucking workhorse.
Joel, there's no love lost between Joel and Susie. And 100% the fact that this happens to save Susie is an unintended collateral consequence.
A byproduct.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And
definitely.
I don't know. I went back and forth a lot thinking about Susie and the depth of her portrayal of Midge in this episode and just how deplorable her behavior was, and especially in terms of the gambling. And she had Midge doing shows, what she said, 3 shows a night for 6 nights a week, working her ass off because of Susie's gambling debts.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about it critically on my second watch, and when we see Susie, we see her in this tiny little studio apartment. She is clearly someone who has dealt with poverty, has always struggled to make ends meet. And that type of, living in survival mode for that long, as soon as she does have money, what's she going to do with it? She's never had money before. She has it and she wants to gamble. She wants to spend it. She's going to take risks. And it's just so interesting to see that portion of her character development. And it 100% makes sense to me why she would then become addicted to gambling after this success. And it's just so contrasted with Midge too, because Midge is so used, she doesn't think about money. She's always had it. You don't have to think about money when you're used to having it. And that made me feel a tiny bit more sympathy for Susie.
Yeah.
Remember when Midge, you're talking about her relationship to money, when she gets kicked off the tour of Shy Baldwin and she comes back and she has all these debts and everything, and the milkman, she can't get her milk delivered, and she just calls all these people and she's like, how about extending my tab? How about
increasing it?
Increasing my tab. Yeah, she just she can talk her way out of anything, and money is monopoly money to Midge. It's not reality,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good point.
And I was just thinking about it as you guys were talking. If Midge were to have an addiction, it would probably be what they call a sex and love addiction. And sex and love addiction, when you as someone who has been to meetings, there are Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous meetings. I've been to them. I was a different person in earlier years, and it has very little to do with sex. Usually it's more an addiction to people and having someone it's a dependency thing.
Makes sense.
And clearly Midge is dealing with that as an addiction. If she had an addiction in her life, it would probably be love, because she can't not be married. We see she can't
apparently.
It's only gotten worse.
It's hard to keep track now of all of these references to her lovers or fiancés or husbands or who she's dated. That is an interesting parallel.
I have more to say about that, but before we get too ahead of ourselves, because we're but whatever, it has to happen. Let's go back to the roast for a little delightful interlude from Emily Bergel as Tess. Oh, God.
Oh, my goodness. I know we talked
about it a lot already.
I know. But I think that when they gave her introduction of how they took 3 connecting flights and 2 B12 injections to get her here, who did you think was going to be coming out that door? I just had no idea. And then all of a sudden,
I was like, who is it? Like,
who could this be?
Happen?
I thought, could it be Midge? I had no idea. And then here comes Tess in all her Gold LeMay glory. So I don't even know how to. It was so tacky and so great. She is incredible. I hope she gets more from this because she just took this tiny little bit part and she took over everything. It was so cringe. It was so oh my God, this is embarrassing. But she knows she thinks she's good. So
the fact that she, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, she comes out and she has all these notes and she comes out and starts reading everybody else's jokes and no one's laughing but herself, and then she doesn't get them. Was hilarious.
I died.
She was I was laughing. Really high. She was clearly on something. She was on all the things. And it just keeps cutting to Sean Gunn and all the guys saying, and then it just got fucking weird.
It really I mean, I think the only thing I could compare this to is just what these has-beens, but they're mentioning how awesome Susie is that, she'll do anything even for her little sister, but got her, helped her with her music career where she had this one hit, what was it, number 85 on a Billboard dance chart and number 1 in Indonesia, and that she didn't even know it existed before, that she moved there because Susie convinced her.
I didn't know Indonesia was real before that. And now I live there.
Yeah, I she made me think about back in the 70s, all those disco songs. Everybody was putting them out. It reminded me of the one. Remember that one song, More, More, More? It was by a porn star. I can't sing it right now, but you know what I'm talking about. It was so tacky and cheesy, and it was just over and over again. The
lyrics are, when I saw you at the nightclub, you were dancing. And then she says, let me rub your face while you shake your hips. I'm just a baby girl who wants to taste your lips. You say you have to go, but boy, there's something you need to know. Whoa, whoa, that I'm never, ever gonna stop loving you, watching you, following you.
It was
what is this
special
song? Let me rub your face while you shake your hips.
I think if this is Tess's last hurrah, she definitely went out with a bang.
With a bang. I thought that the trash moment was my highlight. This takes the cake, man.
It was amazing. It was so amazing. Silly. It was really great. I don't think I could have anything else that could top that.
No, and this is one of the reasons why this episode is truly it might be a damn near perfect episode, because it gave me highs and it gave me lows, but then it brought me back up again, and then it had me, it ran the gambit, man. It was
all over the
things.
place.
Yeah. Yep. All right, so shall we get to this
yes.
Midge's Hawaiian wedding in 1973? Oh, goodness.
This was a fun one. I did enjoy that the roasters are sitting around talking about the Midge Hawaiian wedding story. This is clearly something that's taken on a life of its own. And they're I just hope it's true. And they're seeing it as Susie will do anything for her clients. But obviously we cut to it and we see just how much Susie loves and cares for Midge. She can't help it. Midge is basically her person, to steal something cheesy from Grey's Anatomy. But she clearly loves her. And it's true. And one thing that I have to mention so I don't forget is the brilliant physical comedy moment from Rachel Brosnahan opening up that banana as she is freaking out. I lost it. I got distracted from the scene because she's just butchering and mushing
aggressively.
It was so good.
And I think you have to be careful when you're eating a banana, I'm sure, and that was one way to eat a banana.
Whatever works.
Yeah, no, that moment actually really did, it pulled my attention as well, because doing something like that, it looks so easy, right? To just pick up something like a banana and just aggressively open it, shove a bite in your mouth, and then slam it down on the table, and then continue on without missing a breath or a beat. But guys, I have to say, as an actor, This was incredible acting because it reminded me of something that you see on stage. The seamless. She's a fucking pro, man.
So seamless.
That to utilize a prop like a banana like that's like food as well. It's just not as easy as it looks. It's just not as easy as it looks. I can't explain it any other way. Yeah.
Just like those. I don't know if that was direction or her choice or a mix
sure it was her
of both.
choice.
But like,
I'm sure it was her.
The way all of these actors, you know, the choices they make and these that seem so small adds to the richness of the show. And that moment, I was just like, God, I love her. Like, that was brilliant. But, you know, we see Midge having cold feet about getting married to Philip Roth, which is one of the funniest things I could imagine. Like, for our listeners who are not familiar with Philip Roth, he was a Jewish American writer known mainly for a very controversial novel that they reference in the show called Portnoy's Complaint. And it's kind of, you know, it's sexually explicit and it's intended to be comedic, and it was just,
which I love.
Yes.
The fact that Abe is all about Philip Roth is like really funny, knowing
like,
the way
really,
that
Abe?
this man writes.
I mean, he is, you know, he's Jewish, he's successful, he won a ton of awards, he won the Pulitzer ultimately in 1998 for American Pastoral, which is another just kind of brilliantly kind of quirky work. But he was notoriously prickly, I guess is a good word, and just don't really see him as having a sense of humor that would jive with Midge. And I will say one thing, I could hear one of my English professors in the back of my head talking about Philip Roth and how he kind of did push the envelope, especially during the sexual revolution of the 60s. And this English professor of mine happened to be a huge Lenny Bruce fan as well. And there are comparisons from academics and in the media back then to Lenny Bruce with how he pushed